Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mask. This is where we have clinical leaders as our guests, and we just try to get to know them as real people. And one of the best guests we have is Dr. Edmondo Robinson. Edmondo, welcome to Behind the Mask.
Thank you for having me.
And Edmondo, you are the former CDO at Moffitt Cancer Center, but now the CEO of Down East Digital, and you're still a practicing physician.
That's correct. Yes. It was had a great time at Moffitt as chief digital officer, first chief digital officer there, and now off and doing new and exciting things around digital innovation.
Yeah, that's very cool. And we'll put all the links in the show notes so people can look it up. And we try to find out in Behind the Mask who you are, how'd you get here, and where you're going. So at what age did you recognize you were a leader? Because obviously you're a leader. So what age did that happen?
I think it was, I actually think it was high school when I was a leader. But your question is, when did you recognize it? And I'm not sure I recognized it, even though I was a leader. So in high school, sports is a great leadership training platform. And so I was a team captain on the basketball team and those kinds of things. And so, maybe you're recognized as a leader, but you also just think, oh, I'm the team captain because I'm one of the best players. But there's a leadership component, right? So when the coach is thinking about who the captains are going to be, they're also not just thinking about who the best players, but who's really going to lead by example, support the other teammates, and make sure that you elevate the entire team. Well, that's the theme through the rest of my career, right? Can I lead by example? Can I support the rest of my team? And can I elevate the entire group? And so it was probably high school, but I think I recognized it ultimately in college when I became one of the leaders of the student government when I was in UC San Diego. So that's where I was like, oh, wait, they actually elected me to lead. Oh, wait, I guess I'm a leader now, right? And so that's how that came about.
Yeah, very cool. Was there something your parents forced you to do as a kid that you maybe had some eye rolls, but later on as an adult, you're like, wow, I'm glad they made me do that?
I think so. Interestingly, it was, you think about the academics and all the good grades, but it was actually being very clean, right? So I was raised by a single mom, and one of the things I was responsible for as she was off working multiple jobs and in school, because she ultimately became a nurse, but she was in nursing school when I was in high school, for example, is making sure everything's clean. Dishes are clean, bathrooms are clean, and just like maintaining that. So I have this like ingrained that everything needs to be neat, orderly, and it's really helped me a lot. And it's not just the actual physical cleaning, but it's just this idea of applying order and structure to what otherwise would be chaos. That theme actually has resonated for me.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So far, we go back to our childhood and you can see how those themes like really do carry us in adulthood and in our career. What was the single biggest reason you chose healthcare and ultimately to become a physician?
Well, I don't know that there's a single one, because it kind of went through I would say it developed over time, right? So as I mentioned, my mom was in nursing school. So she was a surgical tech for most of me growing up. She finished nursing school actually my freshman year of college. But I was always around hospitals and OR specifically, even though I'm not a surgeon. And so, of course, got that exposure. But honestly, when I was young and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I knew I liked sciences and I knew I liked people. And I was like, wait a minute, if I'm a doc, like there's always going to be sick people. So I'll always have a job, right? And so that was my initial impetus, right? Remember, I was raised by a single mom and, pretty humble. And I was like, I would love to like not have to worry about, making sure I could pay the bills. That was the initial push. Again, science, people, all that made sense. Over time, though, I really doubled down and chose being a physician. So, for example, this is obviously much later. Already in medical schools at UCLA, I took 2 years off of medical school. I literally left medical school to go to business school. I went to Wharton, and I'm in business school at the best business school in the world, and it's just amazing. And think about all the opportunities you have when you come out of business school. I was like, why should I go back to medical school? I could go work in iBanking. I could go do all these amazing things. But I was like, wait a minute. I really want to be a doctor. I actually really want to take care of people. And yes, I can make a lot more money. And I'm definitely leaving things on the table by going back to medical school and finishing residency. but that's really what I wanted to do. So I think I made the positive, affirmative choice to do so after finishing business school.
Yeah, super. That's super interesting. And what about a defining moment in your career thus far? Or maybe it happened prior to your career, but was there a catalyst of some sort that reinforced your trajectory or maybe changed your identity?
You know, I think one of the things that really drove me, and I thought about it, and it was pretty early on, but I think it has continued to resonate with me. Um, my my uncle died of HIV related complications, and I was still in medical school. Right, so this was quite a while ago, over a couple decades, closer to 30 years after at this point, and it was one of those situations where I thought, obviously the medications weren't as advanced as they are now, really changing HIV into a chronic disease, but I still felt like there were opportunities whereby it didn't have to end the way that it did.
Yeah.
And I thought about, like, what does that mean? Is it purely scientific? Like, we need better medications and we need better, interventions, or is it more along the lines of what we now know as health services research, where it's not really about the science of the interventions and therapeutics, but about how do you make sure that everyone receives the best and the top, and they really can live their best lives and have the best outcomes, right? And I really started gravitating towards that second option and a second opportunity, um, around this tragedy for us. And so I thought, well, what can I do? It's one reason why I went into general internal medicine as opposed to surgery or something like that. Like, what can I do to make sure that everyone receives the benefit of the science and of the amazing innovations and technologies that are taking place? And so I've kind of moved my career towards that, and that was the impetus towards for that.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty powerful. Edmondo, what's something that many of your coworkers don't know about you?
We're pretty open, and so folks know most things about. There's very little that they don't know about me. Like, they all know that I'm an LA guy. Raised there, third generation Southern California. They know I'm a big Laker fan. They know I'm a big Dodgers fan. Yes, World Series champion Dodgers. Right. So I'm pretty open about these things. They may not know. I guess there's a couple things they may not know. Is one, I what I do for relaxation. So I'm not a hiker or anything like that. I do run, but I'm a science fiction book, novel reader, right? So that's what I actually spend my time doing. So if I'm gonna go on a vacation, I'm gonna sit and read a book. What's my book? I'm not reading these like, hey, how did Elon Musk become Elon? I'm not interested in that. I'm much more interested in just reading like some sci-fi. The Foundation series, for example, from Asimov, which is on television now. But those are the kind of things that I like. And the other thing that some folks know, some may not, is I'm a big car guy, right? I'm from LA, right? So it's a car culture. And so, yeah, very, very big fan of cars, race cars on the racetrack, as well, and have done it in Europe as well. In some of the classic tracks, in Europe, and had a chance to put my car on those tracks, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. See, I'm learning about a lot about you myself. I'm sure our audience is as well. Wow, Moffitt Cancer Center. What a great place to serve, and also still currently in your role as a hospitalist. Tell us about the last time you cried.
Don't cry often. It was when my mother-in-law passed away. And I think my mother-in-law died, so I shouldn't have to justify it. But at the same time, part of it was that I wasn't with my wife. I was on a trip, and it just felt like it wasn't the right place for me to be.
Yeah.
It was in the wrong place, and so all of that came together. I mean, I immediately got on a flight and like headed back, but I think that was the push there. But again, shouldn't have to justify.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And this is what part of what I'm helping my kids as well is, especially for men, it should be okay to show that emotion. It's part of, again, I think it's part of us maturing as society,
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah. I totally agree. Hey, tell me about a time that someone tried to hold you back and how did you respond?
Oh boy, there's this one. So not a lot of folks know this story. My wife knows the story because I have no new stories. We've been married 21 years. I see there's not a new story I can come up with, but a lot of folks don't know the story. So, I was a national leader in this organization called the Student National Medical Association when I was in medical school, and I was running for another office. So I had already been elected to an office, and I was running for another office. And there was a particular person in that organization, not a student actually, one of the kind of senior faculty advisors, so a doc, because we're all medical students, that really didn't want me in that office because they would not be able to control me like they'd be able to control other people. Right. So they didn't want me in that office. But as part of the process of running for the office, you go and meet with all the key people. And literally you're in a hotel. It's a big meeting. So you're in a hotel. There's a couple thousand people with me. So I go to each person and spend some time with them. And he kept me in that meeting for like an hour and a half, which means that I wasn't able to meet with all the other important people I needed to meet with. And I ended up missing them and ended up not getting that. I ended up not getting elected into that position. And I was like, wow, that was actually really smart. I just realized, I get it. And I should have seen that coming, and I did not. And I could not extract myself from that situation. I was like, wow, that was sharp. But what I realized so many things from that. One is and I teach my son this, there are ops out there, right? There are opposition. There are people that are not for you. And they will come after you, and they will find ways to do so. So this is what, again, I teach my son. I remember taking him to Los Angeles. And we were in one part of the area. I was like, first of all, don't get fooled by the palm trees. We're actually in a dangerous area. Keep your head on a swivel, right? Always. And so a football term, right? Keep your head on a swivel. But I think about that even in management and leadership. Keep your head on a swivel, right? Know where all these different angles are coming at and who doesn't actually have your best interest at heart. And then you play the game as well, right? If that's how the game's played, make sure you play it and you go hard in that game as well. I just make sure that I try to do it with integrity. I try to be above board with everything I do, and but the game is to be played. I'm definitely down to play it.
Yeah, no, that's actually good advice as well. Hey, was there a time that you ever quit doing something and later regretted it? We all stop doing something at some point, but was there a time that you stopped something and you're like, I wish I would have kept doing that?
You know, I don't. Part of my challenge is that I don't stop doing things. I just add things on. Probably should be things like, is there something you should stop doing that you haven't stopped yet? I've stopped doing procedures as an internist, which I regret a little bit. It's just part of the science has advanced a little bit. A lot of folks are using handheld ultrasounds, and I didn't train that way, and I totally could learn. It's not like I couldn't learn it. I could learn it. I just decided not to, and so I don't do my favorite procedures like a thoracentesis, LPs, those kinds of things. I just don't do them anymore. But it's fine. I can still take care of patients, but I do regret it a little bit that I don't have my hands-on ability to do that.
Yeah. When's the last time that you received like a handwritten thank you card, or maybe that you gave a handwritten thank you card?
I received one relatively recently, and I'm trying to remember a couple, right? Because the holidays have just passed, right? So a lot of folks have sent their cards, but some handwritten, really, really thanks. And most of them have been, so at least I'm thinking about at least three. I'm kind of melding them all together, and they're mostly related to my mentorship and really supporting people through whatever their scenario is, whatever their issue is. They're grappling with a new job, or they're kind of exploring their next steps in their career, or they're reassessing their current position. And I spend time doing that. I really enjoy it, and it based on those handwritten notes, it looks like it's been valuable for them as well.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. All right. So kind of like looking forward, chatting to the next generation. This isn't like a word of advice for like graduates, but think of this question in terms of what would you tell them to relish, especially relish as they go through their career? Because as you and I both know, we kind of rush through things. We never took the time to like sit back, what would be that some of the advice you'd give around that, like times to relish?
I think that one of the things that I wish someone had told me is to relish the actual process itself, even the ups and downs. Right? So it's some of the advice I give to founders now as I advise early stage digital health companies. I tell the founders, they're going through rough times. So for example, it might be really hard to raise money, but really, and so they'll go through and they'll have 100 meetings and they'll have 90 no's. But relish that process. There's only so many times you get to go through that, and you will appreciate the yeses so much more. You'll learn from every single no. You'll appreciate the yeses. And when you're standing there ringing the bell at, the New York Stock Exchange as you IPO, you'll remember just that whole process because you really spent the time in that process, right? And it's hard. And so again, I think my advice generally is relish the challenging times just as much as the times when you kind of feel like you're on the top of the world.
Yeah, that's good advice. So Edmondo, you are in the process of this next question. So I often ask, you're currently the Chief Digital Officer from Off Cancer Center, which you had been, and you just made this transition. Tell us a little bit about that transition and about Down East Digital.
Yes. So thanks for that question. I spent 4 years as the first chief digital officer at Moffitt, senior vice president role. I came in pre-COVID. And so as you might imagine, so there's a lot that happens, as a digital leader going through that, right? And as a digital leader, I had all of IT and clinical informatics and cybersecurity and digital innovation. I created that department, and health data services. My chief data officer is amazing. All of those, that was all part of my team. And so getting everyone work from home, transitioning that, it's cancer care. So you got to make sure that you're doing great with virtual care through COVID, did all those things, created some amazing programs and projects like Cancer X, which is a public-private partnership that Moffitt co-leads, among other things that we did. We got a whole new hospital launched as well, which is like not a small thing. So we did these really wonderful things, great team, really cutting edge. And I felt like as I came in, there was a task that I felt like I had when I was recruited to Moffitt. And it was really to position Moffitt to be able to leverage digital innovation to accelerate the mission to prevent and cure cancer. And I think Moffitt's in position to do that. So on one hand, I felt like I did the job that I was recruited to do. So that's one piece of it. The other piece, though, is that prior experiences, as well as with Moffitt through Cancer X and through just my clinical care, something started being highlighted much more, and I just couldn't let it go. And what it was is that there are disparities in the outcomes that people receive from a health perspective based on demographics, access, all these other components, right? So, my example that I give quite frequently for clinical is I'll have people that drive several hours, literally, to come to Moffitt. I'm a hospitalist, so they come in, and maybe they have to get more care afterwards, and do they drive back? But some folks can afford to stay locally, and some cannot. But I also think, okay, I'm seeing these folks that made that drive. I don't know what the denominator is. In other words, I don't know who I'm missing.
Yeah.
I don't know who cannot make the drive, who cannot leave work. It is not receiving what we believe is the best care, right? And so that really bothers me. And so that, along with Cancer X, which was when we did the first project, was really around health disparities and how do we make sure that everyone has access to these wonderful interventions. Going back to my original, impetus to go in the work that I do, I said, why don't I, after what I think has been a pretty successful career over the last couple decades, why don't I just focus on that, right? The goal of so Cancer X is a subset of the Cancer Moonshot. And the Moonshot goal is to decrease the cancer death rate by 50% in 25 years. And I started running the numbers in my head, maybe back of a napkin, and I said, wait a minute, can we achieve that goal if we maintain the disparities in outcomes that we currently have?
Yeah.
And my back of the napkin numbers say no, you cannot. You cannot. So if that's the case, then address the disparities first. And so with that, I decided to focus on health disparities. And again, I'm a digital guy. So I got to find my ikigai, right? So the Japanese concept, right? I got to find my ikigai. So what am I good at? What can I contribute to the world? What does the world need? And so that nexus really wrapped around leveraging digital innovation to eliminate health disparities and improve our overall health outcomes. So that's what I decided to do. So I spun up this company called Down East Digital, and Down East is a reference actually to our summer home, which is in Maine. So there's a part of Maine called the Down East, and so that's where Down East Digital comes from. And what we want to focus on is really broadly, how can digital innovation solve some of the most challenging problems in society? But we're starting with one of the most challenging problems in society, which is health equity. And so that's what we're focusing on. And what we decided to do is bring together the sharpest minds, smartest people, subject matter experts, payer, provider, investors, and founders together to talk about where can we build, I'm going to put my MBA hat on now, where can we build strong businesses with ROI that are long lasting and can really solve the problems in a way that's long-term sustainable. And so that's what we do. So we convene folk together, we work on those projects, we've prioritized, and we're just gonna go. So we just got started, but we're excited, and that's
Yeah, I love it. And like I said, we'll put more information in the show notes for people to look that up. And so, yeah, that's pretty, what do they call it? BHAG, right?
that's exactly right. That's
And
right.
I love it. And so what about on the personal side? So let's just kind of end with this. What's going, obviously you drive a lot, race. What else? What's the BHAG on the personal side of
The
the
BHAG on the personal side, it's interesting. It's related. When I left, I don't have the corporate role anymore, right? And I've spent literally my entire career in corporate healthcare in various different management and leadership roles. This is the first time since I left fellowship that I don't have that. And so really the BHAG for me on the personal side is, how do you do that? Essentially, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm purely, right? I was always kind of an entrepreneur in residence kind of role. Now it's, no, I'm really that, right? I have, advisory services that I provide to digital health companies. I've got Down East Digital. Again, to your point, I still see patients and I love seeing patients, but I'm really an entrepreneur. And so the BHAG is, can I make that work? My family, I've still got young kids. We've got to get them through school and all these things. And they're very supportive and actually part of it. Like everyone, when you're an entrepreneur, like your whole family becomes part of the stuff, right? And so that's really it though, is how do we manage that, support the family, support the kids, but continue to just push this vision of what we think we can accomplish with digital if we focus and we prioritize eliminating these disparities that we've known about for decades. But now we have an opportunity, I think, to have digital play a role, not the only role, but a role in eliminating.
Edmondo, this fascinating conversation behind the mask. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you.